shapeshifting magicians, sorcerers, witches, wizards, or shaman who use magic to transform into animals, other humans, or fantastical forms. They appear in folklore and mythology from nearly every culture around the world. These figures often bend trickery, power, and danger, using their abilities for good, evil, or chaos. While gods like Loki or Proteus shapeshift, the magician versions are typically human or once human practitioners of sorcery. Join us today as we explore on The Wandering Crow, Shapeshifting Magicians.
There is a medicine story that tells of Crow's fascination with her own shadow. She kept looking at it, pecking at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Then Crow's shadow ate her. Crow is dead Crow now. Join us as we attempt to look through the Wandering Crow's eye to find the gateway to the supernatural, to seek to know the unknowable mysteries of creation. Welcome to the Wandering Crow podcast.
Hey, and we're back. Welcome, wanderers, murderers, to the Wandering Crow podcast, where we are going to be having a great time talking about magicians who shapeshift. This is a kind of an exciting topic. I mean, it's something that we've had different versions of it here and there. The most notable is Skinwalkers, and we're not going to really talk about them. Because, Mandy, there's somebody that has a really great podcast about Skinwalkers. Who is that?
Yes, his name is Sean Clen, Shadow Productions. It's SHEN space CLEN. Sean Clen, Shadow Productions. He has his own YouTube channel and permission from his Dene elders to talk about the Tlagushi? Am I saying that right? I'm not sure if I did. The Skinwalkers. Sorry, Dene people. I try.
Yeah.
Maybe I should stop trying. I don't know. But he does have a lot of knowledge that comes direct from the people the legend originates with. So if you want to hear about Skinwalkers, definitely go to the source and hear from him.
And I don't want to invite any to my house because I do live near where they originated from. In my state, I don't want any visits in the middle of the night. I did drive through Navajo Nation at night, and I was very nervous.
Were you?
I was looking all over. I was looking into the black to see if I could see anything running alongside my car, but I didn't, so I was okay. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, the first thing that I think that would be really cool to go into is, Mandy, you said you researched the process or how they do this, how the magicians or shamans or whomever it is that shapeshift, what they do.
From a shamanic perspective, and I'm using the term fairly loosely because not all of these people would maybe necessarily identify as shamans. You know, they're magic people, they're wise people, whatever words they would use. We're using it more in like the anthropologic sense, the shamanic perspective.
Mm-hmm.
There is a pretty common element to the process and how you can actually do the shape-shifting. If it's okay, I'd like to start with a story.
Go ahead.
All right. In a book that I read called Plant Teachers, Ayahuasca, Tobacco, and the Pursuit of Knowledge by an anthropologist named Jeremy Narby with Rafael Conchari Pizar, I read a story about a Peruvian tobacco shaman who shapeshifted into a jaguar.
Wow.
Jeremy Narby is a Canadian anthropologist and author. A lot of the books he writes, he's examining shamanism and molecular biology and shamanic knowledge of botanics and biology through the use of entheogens across all kinds of cultures. And an entheogen is a chemical substance that you would take to induce trance. And I've maybe talked about it before. In my practice, we don't need entheogens. In most practices, you don't need entheogens. You can do it just with the drum. But in certain practices, you do. And this is one that requires an entheogen. So he has actually bona fide spent time in the Peruvian Amazon, and he spent a lot of time with the Ashaninka people, and he learned quite a bit from them. So this is a story that he was told in 1985. As far as I can tell, this was kind of the beginning of his adventures. He was working on a PhD dissertation, and he'd been spending a lot of time with a gentleman by the name of Carlos Perez Shuma. And one day he watched as Carlos blew tobacco smoke over a sick baby who had been brought to Carlos for a healing session. And Narby, who was pretty new to the tribe and new to their practices, wanted to understand how blowing tobacco smoke could possibly help healing an infant that way. And that's when he was introduced to this idea of tobacco shamanism. And that tobacco is a really important plant teacher of the Amazon. He learned about the tobacco shamans of the area, their extraordinary training, and their abilities. One such tobacco shaman was Carlos's own father-in-law, who was a renowned tobacco shaman who was known for being very, very powerful. And I'm going to be describing a practice here. Do not drink tobacco. Just everybody, it is a poison. So these people work with it their entire lives. So you're going to hear me talk about this. Don't just think that you could just pick this up one day and do it. It takes decades of practice. So here's a quote. This is about Carlos's father-in-law. He used to drink his tobacco like it was water. He would pick it up and drink it like this, as if it was nothing. And then he could do what he wanted to. Better yet, he would transform into a jaguar in front of everybody. End quote. Frequently, he would turn into a jaguar and would attack the cattle of the colonists in the area. He hated them and he really wanted to mess with them, so killing the cattle must have seemed a natural and fairly harmless way to do so. The colonists, becoming aggravated at the loss of valuable cattle, hired some Ashaninkas, that's the tribal people, to hunt and kill this jaguar. Quote, if a real jaguar attacks cattle, you can shoot it and kill it. But if it has the soul of a tobacco shaman, you can shoot it from up close and it can still leap and dodge and survive, even though you can shoot it up close. You can't kill it because it's really a person. But the Ashaninkas knew that.
Like, what a sentence.
And they betrayed him.
If the jaguar has the soul of a tobacco shaman, you can't kill it.
Yep.
I love it.
So the Ashaninkas knew about this and they ultimately betrayed him. Carlos's father-in-law had told him that he'd already escaped them 3 different times, so he didn't really believe he could be killed as the jaguar shape. But Carlos figured that maybe there came a time when he could no longer dodge, or maybe they themselves had something secret that they used to catch him. And ultimately, he gave up his body and they sucked out his soul. The Ashaninkas shot the jaguar that he had become, incapacitated it long enough to take out the heart, and cooked it with ashes, resin, and hot peppers. As the jaguar's heart was being cooked, Carlos said that around them they could smell the burning smell of gunpowder. Carlos's father-in-law was dripping wet, like they had drenched him in water. His sweat was flowing because they put his heart in the fire. He says later that his father-in-law said, "They've got me now. It seems as if I can no longer live because in truth they cooked my heart, so I don't have a life." And that's how he died. According to Carlos, on the day that he died, he'd actually been fat and healthy and had never had problems his whole life.
Wow.
Hold on. Help me make sure I understand that story.
Yeah.
So did he have 2 different bodies then, you're saying?
Yes.
So he had his physical body and the jaguar thing, but when they killed the jaguar, he died.
Yes.
Wow.
This is something that also exists in Sather. This is an idea that you can send out a part of your soul out into the world or a part of your awareness. And there's different ways of practice that this can be done. And that soul, with enough practice and with the right intention, like with enough mastery of your own mind and your own energy, a person could transform what they have put out into the world to be any shape at all, to manifest in any way that they want. And this particular shaman, this particular tobacco shaman, Carlos's father-in-law, was powerful enough and had enough mastery that he could manifest part of himself as a physical jaguar. But it was part of his soul. It was a part of who he was innately. So when the other Ashaninka people caught that jaguar and took out the heart of that manifestation of that piece of his soul, it killed piece of his soul. It killed piece of him. And without that piece, he no longer could live. And he died ultimately because he needed that part. that is something that with the safe, they have this practice, a concept of energy as being able to be shaped into a form. And they call this a hugger form. And hugger is, I guess, directly translated as kind of like energy. So you can do that, what they're describing here, what this Jaguar tobacco shaman guy did. You could use a piece of your own soul, but in the safe, they actually advise against it. And I think it's probably for this very reason, because if you separate a piece of your own soul, that part is vulnerable. And not only does it impact you as a person, if for some reason you can't reintegrate that part back into the wholeness of you, but it is a piece of you that's out there in the world that you can't necessarily defend because it's separate from you physically. Because the way that the hugger form is used, you can put your awareness into it and you can use it to do remote viewing. You can use it to spy on people. You could use it to check out situations and places that you've never been. And in the olden days, before the internet and Google Earth, that was a pretty valued ability. And with the safe, they have stressed it's a really good idea to channel energy, maybe from the earth or by creating a fire directly for the purpose and using the energy from the fire to bring it into the hugger form before you put your awareness in it. They also have this idea of something called a fylgja, and that this is also sometimes called the fetch or the follower. And it's actually the difference between the hugger form and the fylgja is the hugger form is something that you consciously create and you can control. A fylgja is something that is either part of your soul or is tethered to your soul, but that happens at birth. So you're basically born with it. And it could be a part of you, or potentially it could be like a helping spirit that was connected to you at birth. And it has also the ability to manifest and to go forward ahead of you in places and in time and to check stuff out for you. And people believe that you could actually sense the fetch when it was nearby. Now, it is a rare ability to make it manifest in such a way where it has a physical form that can be seen and felt by other people, but it is possible. And then again, this is a situation, it requires exceptional mastery, years and years and years and years of practicing soul flight and practicing that, transubstantiation, transmigration, that changing of your soul into that shape. Another place where I had heard this before and I thought was really interesting is, we call it an out-of-body experience. Well, astral projection, you fling your soul out into the universe and you can direct yourself to go separate from your body. And with enough mastery, with enough power, one could, in theory, and it's been described in several different cultures, change the shape of the soul to appear as an animal. And that some people might be able to see that.
Astral projection is an important term that I don't think has ever been discussed on this channel before.
Nope.
We've never talked about it before?
No, not really.
No.
Astral projection?
We've talked about journeying, which might be considered maybe kind of, but it is different. It is very different.
It is.
Yeah.
Astral projection is where you actually project your mind elsewhere.
Through meditation, right?
Through meditation, yes. Through meditation, you can actually, your spirit travels away from your body to other places.
To like an astral place, typically, but also...
No, just even around the world. It doesn't have to necessarily be out into the cosmos. It's just anywhere else but your body.
Yeah, both, all of the above, right?
And my understanding of it is the soul literally leaves the body and you have to take pains to kind of tether the two so that you can find your way back to the body.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you have to make sure that you are correctly protected for that sort of mental procedure before going loose. Yeah. I see a lot of warnings about astral projection and make sure you're being careful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Because it could mean too that something else could possess your body while you're gone.
Okay, so there's
theory,
that, but
yeah.
then also it can bring us right back into this story and what Mandy was talking about, and that makes you vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Because if something happens to your soul, or something happens, I mean, anytime anything happens to your body, but if something happens to your soul while you're
away from your body,
away, then that could be bad, like in that first story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the very basis of the Matrix, the movie, The Matrix. Like you turn your soul into a digital version of yourself. And if you die inside the Matrix, your body dies because your soul's no longer in your body.
That's crazy. I never thought about it in those terms before. Nice connection. I love it.
Just some people might connect with that a little bit.
So, I feel like the mastery part is important, but it's probably possible to work your way there. I think that there's cheat codes is really what I wanted to get at. So I feel like I've touched on this a little bit in other places too. I've done ceremonies with my group where I was lucky enough to be able to take vital signs and stuff as we were doing things. And people's vital signs really scared the poop out of me because I was like, you are not okay. We have to go to the hospital now. This is not okay. And they're like, nah, I'm fine. I'm cool. It's fine. I'm good. Whatever. I do think that there are a lot of rituals, and the entheogens themselves bring us to a state that is approaching death. And in that place where we're close to death, in that liminal place where we're not dead yet, but we're kind of close, it is easier to shake the soul loose and do some big things. So for me, it was really interesting to reread.
Hold on. Entheogens.
I talked about it in the beginning. It's any chemical substance that you could take, like ayahuasca.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Or a strong enough concentration of Tabasco. Maybe that could make you soul fly.
Okay.
Sorry,
back to your thought that you were on.
DMT, any of those substances, right, that you could take exogenously and could bring you to an altered state of consciousness, right?
Okay.
The drums. So there are cheat codes that I think make it possible to skip some of those steps of mastery. Whereas with like the Buddhists, we know I think that's where we got the concept of out of body, or at least that's what I remember as a kid. It was Buddhist monks doing out of body stuff because they meditated so much. Like, I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I remember as a kid learning. But they spent their whole lives. They dedicated their entire lives to being in a meditative state, to understanding what that meant, to mastering their own thoughts and mastering their minds and mastering how they projected their energy out into the world. So I think that it's kind of neat to see this common thread of basically they're all doing the same thing. And I know we said we weren't going to talk about skinwalkers, but there is one part of the skinwalker equation that I wonder if maybe is some kind of a cheat code. It is said that in order to become a skinwalker, the magician, that medicine person, has to commit the ultimate evil. They have to kill a family member. They have to sacrifice a family member. I wonder if that in itself is a kind of mental like an emotional mastery of turning off your own emotions, turning off your attachment to this human being as a person who's important to you, and really focusing only on the intention and the goal of being able to do the shapeshifting. And that in some way unlocks the potential in that person to be able to do it. I don't know. It's just a thought I had. We would actually have to talk to a Dene person to really know. But that is an important part of the equation for them. Is like the final step before you become a skinwalker, is committing that evil act. So that's really what I kind of wanted to talk about. And I think it's really neat. And it does seem like as I am reading these accounts and I'm understanding it, like it all does make a kind of logical sense to me mixed in with my perspective and the training I've already had and some of the stuff that we already do. Like I could definitely see the next steps and how you could get there. But it is something that you would, I feel, in my opinion, have to be really dedicated to get there.
Yeah. So in that story you told, where was it located?
Peru.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Ashaninka.
That's interesting. One of the things that I did look up was the
The Nawal.
Nawal, and that is also Mesoamerican,
Mm-hmm.
and was similar. They turned into jaguars.
Part of the reason they did that, so jaguars were important, and also snakes, I read, were important. He does later in the book describe a journey that he took where he became a jaguar. He talks about how they do a ceremony and he actually felt his body change and he became a jaguar. The purpose of the ceremony was they needed to track down where the game were going to be. They were hungry, they were starving, and they needed to figure out where the deer were so that they could feed their people. So that's what the purpose of the ceremony was. So the jaguar, being a natural predator and hunter, in that form, they were better easily able to find the game. And so they did this, they did the ceremony, they found the spot where they felt the game were going to be. They came back to their bodies and they went out to the spot, and sure enough, the game came and they were able to feed the people. So there was always a utility to it. It wasn't just for the fun of it. They had a reason why they were doing these things, at least in Peru.
So the Nawal, is that
I think it's the Nawal, yeah, the Nahuatl.
Yeah, I think you can.
Nawal.
I think you can spell it with a G or an H. And,
yeah, I saw it with an H.
Nagual or Nahual. It all comes from the same root of a word. But it's a supernatural being, a spirit that is attached to someone, something, or some animal. And it has the power to transform and take on different shapes. It can be good or bad. It can protect or harm. It can heal or cause illness. It is a powerful force that can control and manipulate the natural world. And that brings me to what I researched. And I researched some East African shapeshifters. And these are called Buddhas.
Really? Buddhas?
It's spelled either Bouda or Buda. And it's a were hyena archetype. It's rooted in Ethiopian and border Horn of African traditions. You know, the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia, that kind of whole area. And it's a mythical taxonomy of the compendium. It's classified as a nocturnal shapeshifter and necrophage.
Necrophage? Like a death eater?
Necrophages are organisms that feed on death tissues, from vultures and hyenas to blowflies, fungi, bacteria, and sea scavengers.
So this being would serve as a necrophage?
Yes.
Wow.
It's associated with evil eye capabilities.
Oh.
Frequently entangled with social anxieties around craft guilds, marginally, and death rites. So it's something that is very deep into the traditions. In that area, Ethiopia itself has 80 different tribes or ethnic groups that make up that small region of the world. One of the largest, of course, is the Somalis, and that's Somalia, but typically that's all kind of the same area. I think that all used to be included in one Ethiopia, but I think Somalia wanted to be separate because they're like any other tribes, they would fight amongst themselves. So in folklore, a Buddha is a person who can transform into a hyena or project their spirit into one, especially after dusk. So very similar. And that's the thing I've noticed with all of these different things, is that they're all very similar in the way that they either shapeshift or project their spirit into the animal.
Mm-hmm.
The entity is most often described as a cemetery raider and hunter of vulnerable sleepers. But accounts vary from malevolent sorcerers to misrecognized outsiders. While hyenas are ecologically real animals prominent in Ethiopian landscapes, the Buddha represent a liminal figure bridging human society and Carnian ecology, and is invoked to explain grave disturbance, livestock losses, unexplained wasting illnesses, or nocturnal fear. I don't have any specific stories of them, but it's a very rooted thing for African shamans or medicine men or things like that. And there's different regional variants of them as well. So it's not just one specific tribe. It's just that whole entire area that has this belief or this fear of it, I guess, because it's usually synonymous with the evil eye. It's a power to curse, to bring harm upon people or objects through a malevolent gaze or out of envy, which I'm going to do to your cat right now, Abby. Just kidding. Just kidding. So victims of Buddha attacks may experience nausea, vomiting, or strange behavior, which can be fatal if not treated with traditional remedies, prayers, or exorcisms.
Oh, interesting. So I'm trying to understand the mechanics of it. So the medicine person or whoever projects their body into the hyena. So it's a physical hyena? Like a physical being? Okay. And then with the physical hyena, somehow puts an evil eye on a person?
The magician or the shaman or whoever is using the evil eye to create that evil, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just understanding. So they're not mauled by an actual hyena who's under the control of but somehow maybe they manifest the hyena and then they spiritually attack with the spiritual version of I don't know. I'm just trying to understand how that works. That's all. The belief system of it, Abby.
I'm thinking about this Reddit forum that I ended up in about all of this, where the belief is that the transformation is very literal physical transformation from, human to animal. And in order to do so, you have to actually know anatomically everything about the other animal and human anatomy in order to be able to kind of meditate and consciously contort your body in this way.
Okay.
Anyway, after a while, I realized that I was on some sort of fantasy world building website.
I was going to say none of that sounds right, but okay, I'm listening.
And that it was these are the theories of the people of how that would work in these, I don't know, D&D type worlds or video games. I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. As much sense as anything else. Sorry, JT, but that's where my brain was going.
Yeah, you made that face and I was like, oh no, what? I'm glad you shared because that's funny.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out, kind of the evil eye belief. And the evil eye is a magical symbolism of ironworking folklore.
Oh.
It's like, okay, so you have the evil eye, you have the power to curse or bring harm upon people or objects through a malevolent gaze or out of envy.
Yes.
And that's where the victims of a Buddha attack may experience nausea, vomiting, or strange behavior, which can be fatal if not treated with traditional remedies, prayers, or exorcisms. Some of the ethnic groups in that area, they're more of a protection.
So they're defensive instead of
they're defensive. They guard the boundaries of their area, of their land. There's a lot of talk about how they show up in cemeteries, and they can go and devour dead
freshly
people.
Dead.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Which is where where the kind of necromancy side of it comes from. Because but that's just how hyenas are. That's how they eat. They eat
they're
dead
scavengers.
Stuff.
I mean, at some point, Homo, whatever part of our evolutionary trail, we were scavengers at some point.
Yeah,
we were much lower on the food chain. So it's just a fancy name for it. Necrophage, you said?
Necrophage.
Necrophage.
Death eater.
Neato gang.
Depending on where you're from, there's the Tigrina Buddha, where if you speak Tigrina, which is, I guess, a language in the area, their folklore kind of refers more to the power of the evil eye and the ability of the individual to transform into the hyena, whereas the Sudan Buddha is more of the evil eye worker, where they use the evil eye to do the cursing.
Mm.
They don't necessarily transform into the hyena. So depending on where you're from, depending on where it is, depending on the tradition that you have, really depends on the hyena. Some are where they actually transform into a hyena. Some are where they project their spirit into a hyena. Some are where they maybe use the hyena to attack or curse or whatever it is. So
is this the same evil eye as in
the blue with the dot in the middle? It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like the same
because that's meant to be like a
concept.
talisman and a good luck to ward off bad.
Yeah, it's the name itself is like an oxymoron. So like
Right.
it's called an evil eye, but it actually protects you from the evil eye. And
But
it protects you from the evil eye that JT is describing. So someone's
Right.
jealousy, someone's malice, someone's hatred for you, sending you bad vibes. The evil eye, the actual talisman, protects you from that energy. And it sounds like in this culture, the evil eye is the person who is eyeing you and feeling all bad about you.
Right.
It's more literal.
It's kind of a motif.
Okay.
Like evil eye, grave transgression, craft secrecy, liminal thresholds. That's the other thing I kind of like about when we research stuff like this. Like liminal comes up. There's lots of liminal spaces in these things. Like you're in a liminal state when you're transforming from one to the other. Or while you're in that state, you're kind of in a liminal state. You're kind of in an in-between. That's what I had.
That's pretty neat.
So Abby, what did you research?
I researched the Kitsune.
Yay.
And those are little fox spirits.
Okay.
Have any of you ever heard the idiom, the devil is beating his wife?
No.
Yes, I have heard that.
It's apparently very popular in the southern states. Like, I guess they say it a lot in Louisiana, for example. It's a phrase spoken when there's a sun shower, when it's raining outside, but it's like beautiful sunny day.
Oh.
And so they say the devil is beating his wife. And so a superficial search into the origins of this saying indicate that it's likely French, brought from French settlers to Louisiana, where it is apparently like really common, and the South in general. Well, the Japanese also have a funny little thing that they say during a sun shower, and that is the fox's bride is going to her husband's house. Which refers to a specific story that I read that was not interesting enough to make the cut. But this little saying, I was like, this is, well, what do you know?
The fox's bride is going to her husband's house.
The fox's bride is going to her husband's house.
That's why it's raining yet sunny.
There's all of these like folklore stories about fox in Japan in general. In Japan, the kitsune is considered to be the most interesting and popular animal in tradition. You'll find the tradition of the fox existing everywhere you go in the country, and kitsune is loved and worshipped by the people. The word kitsune comes from two Japanese syllables, kitsu and ne. Kitsu being the sound made, and I might be pronouncing that wrong. I think it's kitsune. Anyway,
I've only ever heard kitsune, but I am American and we mispronounce stuff all the time. So
kitsu is the sound made when a fox yelps.
One of the many.
And the ni is a word signifying an affectionate feeling. And so like the fox yelping plus affection, like that was the name that was given to these little fox spirits in their folklore. So kitsune are popular Japanese folklore. This is straight from Wikipedia now. It's a fox or fox spirit which possesses the supernatural ability to shapeshift or bewitch other life forms. So rather than being a human that is transforming or anamorphing into an animal, this is an animal that is able to essentially trick humans by appearing in human form. And so now this one, I do have a really cool story. It's long, but I have also trimmed it down and paraphrased it a little bit. This story appears in Tales of Old Japan by Algernon Bertram Freeman Mitford. And I found it published on academia.essendai.com, but apparently these Tales from Old Japan is specifically where it came from. In the village of Iwahara, there dwelt a family which had acquired considerable wealth in the wine trade. On some auspicious occasion, it happened that a number of guests were gathered together at their house, feasting on wine, of course, and fish. As the wine cup went around the room, the conversation turned on foxes. Among the guests was a stubborn 30-year-old carpenter named Takutaru. He interrupts the conversation saying, look, you've all been talking about men being bewitched by foxes for a little too long. I think maybe you've all been bewitched to even take such a thing seriously. How on earth can foxes have such power over men? Just enough. Can we please talk about something else?
Reasonable.
So then another guest quips back, Takatoura knows a little what goes on in the world, or he wouldn't speak so. How many myriads of men are there who have been bewitched by foxes? Why, there have been at least 20 or 30 men tricked by the brutes on the Maki Moor alone, and it's hard to disprove facts that have happened before our eyes. Meaning, he's saying, like, look, we've seen it, okay? You can't try to argue to us that it's not real because we've seen it with our own eyes. And so they're doubling down. They're like, bro, like, just sit down and be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. So Takatoura says back, you're all idiots. I'll go right now, tonight, and prove that you're crazy. There is not a fox in Japan that can make a fool of me. So these dudes are like, you are on, and let's make it interesting. If you come back and nothing happened to you, we'll buy 5 measures, in air quotes, because that's the term that they used. We'll buy 5 measures of wine and 1,000 copper cash worth of fish for you. But if you're wrong and something happens, then you have to do that for us. And so he's like, yeah, done deal. That sounds like an easy deal. So Takatoura, with all the confidence in the world, goes out to the Maki Moor as soon as it's nightfall. Almost immediately, he sees a fox run into a small bamboo grove. And it's like, at that moment, all of a sudden, it just like strikes him. He's like, oh shit, these foxes like might actually bewitch me. And so he's like watching this fox. And as he's watching it, this woman comes out of the same bamboo grove that this little fox just walked into.
Sus.
Yeah. Out of it comes the daughter of some important guy. They call him the headmaster. I'm just going to call him an important guy of the village of Upper Horikane. She also happens to be married to the headmaster or headman of the village of Maki. So her father is super important and her husband is super important. Hey, Master Takatoura, like, where are you going? She asks him. The village, he says. Oh, well, since you have to pass my place to get there anyway, will you walk me home from here? He's immediately just like, oh my God, it's a fox and it's trying to trick me. He suspects her like right out of the gate. She's trying to trick him, but obviously he can't know for sure. And he's not going to be a rude dick and leave her out there in the forest. So he's like, okay, I'll walk you home. But he walks behind her to see if she has a tail or anything. And he can't see one. And anyway, so they get to her house and her family is all like, oh my God, oh, it's our daughter. What are you doing here? Is everything okay? And they're like just making a fuss over her and asking all of these sorts of questions. So he sneaks around the back of the house into the kitchen where he finds her father. And he tells her father, like, hey, man, I'm pretty sure that's not your daughter. I think it is a bewitching fox from the moor. And the father sits there and takes that in. And he's like, whoa. This guy. And he calls the wife in and he tells the wife, he repeats the story to the wife, and she is just like, the fuck are you talking about? Of course that's my daughter. And she's like pissed. And so Takatoura, he insists, he's like, no, it's not her. It's a devil trickster fox. And so the mom's like, okay, well, what are you going to do then? And he says, okay, well, I'll prove it. You guys go hide in the pantry over there and I'll soon strip the false skin off and show you the beast its true colors.
I'm not sure I like this language.
So they hide and he calls the daughter in and immediately commences with the torturing. He trods upon her, which I didn't realize is the past tense term for treading. So I had to look that up. So he trod upon her. So he tramples her, stomps hardly on her, amongst other things. She's screaming in agony. Her parents are still quietly listening from the pantry. And he's like, okay, if this isn't enough to make you show me your true form, then I'll roast you. And he pushes her over into the hearth. And with a few last screams of pain, she dies. At which point her parents finally come out of the pantry and they're freaking out. They're like, oh my God, you murderer. You killed our daughter. Blah, blah, blah. You're crazy. And they command their servants to strap him up, rough handle him a bit and detain him until their son-in-law, the girl's husband, comes home. And since he's kind of the leader of that area, he'll ultimate consequence, like you're dead, man. You're dead. Well, shortly thereafter, after they get him apprehended, a local priest happens to be passing by and decides to stop at the house to give well wishes to this family and checks in on them. Of course, they report everything that's gone on there that night to him and bring him over to where they're keeping Takitaro. And of course, Takitaro is pleading to the priest, like, please save me. Can you get them not to kill me? And so the priest kind of thinks for a second and he's like, all right, if I can convince them not to kill you, then you need to become one of my disciples. You need to become a servant of the church for the rest of your life. And that's it. And Takitaro, of course, is like, yeah, deal. You got it. And the priest convinces the family, like, listen, have mercy on him. Killing him isn't going to bring your daughter back. And I've gotten him to agree that he will take a vow and become a part of the priesthood. And so they agree on the condition that the priest basically has to initiate him right there in the kitchen. Like, they need to see it happen to know that it's real. So the priest sings his anointing hymn and pulls out his razor blade and shaves Takitaro bald as a part of his initiation or whatever. And he's like, okay, he's one of us now. Boom. As soon as the ceremony is over, there's this loud burst of laughter, and simultaneously daylight breaks, and Takitaro finds himself alone in the middle of the moor where he started.
Whoa.
He knows
with
immediately.
With a bald head?
Huh?
With a bald head?
He knows immediately that the foxes have tricked him. He puts his hand over his head and discovers that he has a clean shaved bald head.
Whoa.
But do you want to know what else, though? He didn't murder a girl, so that's awesome.
Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go. He didn't murder a girl, but he sure thought he did.
So he didn't murder a girl, but could you imagine the adrenaline?
What a goddamn relief. Oh, my God. I would be like, no, never again.
Of course, he goes back to where like the wine place was and all the drunk buddies are. And he's got a handkerchief over his head and he's got his tails between his legs. He's like, I am ashamed to admit that something definitely happened. And he reveals their bald head. They're ROFL. Okay. They are rolling on the floor laughing. It's an uproar. And he makes good on his part of the bet, but then also apparently renounces the world and does end up becoming a priest in the end.
Okay.
Wow.
What's the moral of this story? Stay the fuck out of moors. I mean,
stay away from foxes.
Stay away from foxes, yeah.
So that's an example. I mean, I found like a few different examples of actual folklore and stories, but apparently like foxes are really well revered in Japan in general, but also, probably depending on, I don't know if it's like old world or new world, if they still hold on to these beliefs, but the Kitsune is the tricksy, bewitching fox spirit that can, this guy kind of like hallucinated, but at the same time, his head was bald. I mean, that doesn't even seem as much as a transformation as it is a full-blown like
alternate reality
mental projection. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
yes.
That's amazing. I don't know if I don't think I have talked about this. I've been going down the K-drama rabbit hole lately on Netflix just because I watched one that was cute and now it's all that gets recommended to me, and they are very cute. Foxes
K-drama.
are important to Koreans as well. K-drama is Korean dramas. We've been importing a lot of Korean culture lately. So there are several television shows from Korea that feature these fox creatures that can also not only be foxes in the forest and the woods, but also can be out in the world with humans and can make themselves appear human. And they're considered, at least in the K-dramas, there's no telling what the actual beliefs are. But in the K-dramas, they talk about how the foxes are like the guardian spirits of the mountains, and they're like the protectors and owners of these mountains, basically. And they're considered to be extremely powerful, the fox beings in the Korean dramas anyway. So that's kind of interesting that crosses. I mean, they're close to each other, but they're not so close that I would have thought that might cross over like that. Seems like it did a little.
There was a little thing that I found, the Kitsune book. This is on www.coyotes.org.
Interesting.
It says the hardest book to find on Japanese fox mythology that we know of is Kitsune, Japan's Fox of Mystery, Romance, and Humor by Kyosho Nozaki. Unfortunately, it is also one of the most interesting, having been written by an actual Japanese scholar. Published in 1961 by the Hokusaido Press, it is now long out of print and it's hard to find copies. It's 6 chapters and they've typed out the book on this website. Now, I did actually read a very little amount and it references the silver fox being really revered by, this is called the Hat Creek Indians.
Oh.
I'm sure they have some real name. Or is that offensive to say? I mean, Hat Creek sounds like the white people name that we gave to these people, right?
Yeah.
According to the legend of the Hat Creek Indians who live in the northwest of America, they also had legends about the silver fox and how important it was. That was my segue, was that, yes, you're right. It is revered all around the world. And it makes you think this is probably maybe some piece of the origin story of the term quick as a fox or smart as a fox, or aren't they like clever as a fox?
Yeah, foxes are considered to be tricky and very smart in lots of cultures. Also, AI says the Hat Creek Indians are the Atsugewi, the pine tree people. They historically lived along Hat Creek in northeastern California. Moving along.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Well, I'm just beginning my silver fox stage.
Nice.
With the silver in my hair right now. So thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate
it. Yes, you're welcome. A while ago, I had done some research into some of the shape-shifting in Greek mythology. Hecate is meant to be a shapeshifter. Circe is a shapeshifter. There's actually something that I found on Britannica that says Hecate in some circle somewhere, I don't know where that information came from beyond Britannica, that she is actually thought to be possibly the mother of both Circe and Medea. And if you don't know, Hecate she's considered the Greek goddess of witchcraft, which I think is a term that has been applied to her modernly, because really she was a craftswoman, an expert in pharmakeia and herbal remedies and magic and other such things. And so, of course, when we think of those things, what do we think of? Witches and witchcraft. And so I think that retroactively, the goddess of witchcraft has been applied to her. And it's said that both Circe and Medea were her daughters and were, at the very least, possibly apprentices of her craft, which is how they were so powerful. Plus all of the stuff about being demigods and things. But she's often depicted with dogs, a snake, and those things are meant to have some symbolic meaning. And there's also origins for those imagery in some of the stories about her, but also it's believed maybe she could transform into those things. She also is represented as a triad, like a 3-faced figure. And it's believed that she appears to people possibly in 3 different forms: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And then Circe is depicted in many stories as having the power of transformation. In the Odyssey, she specifically applies it to other people, turning a group of men into swine when they arrive on her island. And those are some very generic base level things that I know about some shape-shifting in old mythology. I also read a story briefly about Celtic mythology, in which I might be misquoting it, but there are like significant important characters like the King of the Fairymen. He can transform, and he accidentally gets himself killed basically because he runs into like some cousins of the family that they have a big feud with, and he doesn't want them to see him, so he transforms himself into swine to hide amongst a herd of them that are nearby. But the three men figure it out because they had seen him on the road, and then he magically disappeared, and then there was only swine, and they were like, I think that one of these swine is him, and they figure it out and they kill him. The part that I just told you guys is a very small part in the story of the quest of the children of Tiran, of the Tuatha De Danann, and Sion is the character who ends up getting killed by the children of Tiran. They're the ones who kill him. Anyway, the transformation in that story is a blurb compared to the rest of the story. It's only briefly mentioned in the story, and there's not a lot about it. And so that's the thing about mythology is, it's really easy to just think that it's all just story, just fable. And I don't know. I don't have any way to segue out of this.
No, I like what you're saying. I feel like what happens, like an example that comes to mind is Odin, Loki. I think we talked about them a little bit, the Valkyrie, right? To ordinary people who hear these stories told, it's magic. It's not knowable. It's not understood. And I think that certain details get lost or confabulated or accidentally transposed as different things, right? Like I feel like some of the detail gets lost, but if you look at it from a place of having kind of an idea of how it works, like the mechanics, then it begins to make sense in a different way sometimes, these stories. So I like for a long time, I suspect, Odin, I think, was a very important magician or shaman of some kind of forbidden arts. He is the one man who had no problem whatsoever learning the magic that was specifically only for women, and it was supposed to be this emasculating thing that he did that, but he did it anyway. And so Odin was said to have been able to be a shapeshifter. Loki is said to have been a shapeshifter. The Valkyrie would become crows. And I also noticed, I didn't do as much research as I maybe would have wanted to do. I did a little bit of research on Baba Yaga, who's kind of like the Slavic boogie person. She's a lot like Loki. Everybody loves to hate her, and she does some messed up stuff, like and including eating people sometimes just because she felt like it. Or she could be your best buddy and just help you out. Like there really was no telling what version of Baba Yaga you were going to get that day. But she was considered a shapeshifter, and she could change her form. And there's a lot of really weird stuff that's associated with Baba Yaga that I actually haven't heard in other folklore about other similar types of people. But the shapeshifting part is just like, oh yeah, and then she turned into this thing, and then whatever happened, and then the whole story proceeds. It's like a background detail for some other story. But really, those are the important things that end up missing. And I think for a lot of people, because it's too fantastical. It is a detail that is meant to increase the fantastic quality of the story being told and to make the hero seem more heroic and to make the stakes seem a little bit higher. But the notion that it's actually possible is left aside, because for most rational reasoning people, it's just not. It's not a thing. It's impossible, right? But I'm of a different opinion. And I feel like physics is further and further taking us to a place where it is more and more possible. So I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting to think about the place these kinds of stories hold in society and the place that people who claim to be magical and say that they are doing magical things say. It's a very, very different, very, very, very different kind of thinking in those two groups of people. Mm-hmm. And I think that says something.
With that, I would like to do one other shape-shifting magician who is from the Mapuche mythology from Chilean and Southern Argentinian folklore. It's not a natural spirit or animal, but the results of dark sorcery. Only the most skilled, and these are the actual sorcerers, are called Kalku, Kalku. What they do is they apply an ointment to their neck, and they sometimes will do incantations, and then their head will separate from their body and turn into a human-faced bird. Oh. Sometimes they'll have talons. Their ears will be like
harpies,
wings with feathers, and it's basically a grotesque human head with enormous wing-like ears, often feathered, that flap to enable the flight. Sometimes there's other bird features like talons, claws, sharp teeth, and wild or grizzly mane. It flies primarily on moonless nights and is usually invisible to ordinary people. So that's really creepy. And then they have a...
I was picturing that. That's disgusting.
They have a sound that they make that's basically tui, 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 or something like that. And that, if you hear that sound, that means either it's a omen of illness, death, or misfortune. So if you hear, like a bird-style tui sound, be warned. So this flying head causes mischief, spreads curses, sucks blood from sleepers or the sick, spies flights. It spies on people. It can travel far, and the body must remain undisturbed for the head to reattach at dawn. If the body is moved or destroyed, the sorcerer is doomed. So they have to hide their bodies before they do this so that they don't get found and basically get killed just by simply moving the body, because the head won't know where to go.
There it is. This is an example, right? Like, I feel like this is astral projection explained by someone who doesn't really understand astral projection. You know what I mean? Right there. Got to protect the body, got to make sure it stays in the same place, separates the head from the body. Well, maybe it just separates the mind from the body. Like, somebody tried to explain it once to somebody who couldn't do it, and this is the story they created. That's crazy.
Anyway, so
that's just
for those of you wanderer murderers who have hung on to the end here, please go to our social media.
If you like what we do, please like, subscribe, download, comment on, and leave a review. Please, if you can, give us a 5-star rating. This is going to help us to defeat the algorithm. If you have a story that you want to share, you want to comment on something that we've said, or you just want to chat with us, you can reach us in a variety of ways on a variety of social media platforms. If you'd like to do that, you can find our links in all of our show notes. And now back to the show.
Leave some comments.
Yeah.
If we said something wrong, please correct us so we can be right.
Yeah.
Anyway, That was very interesting. I very much enjoyed researching hyenas.
Nobody ever talked about the berserkers.
Well, we kind of talked about them in an earlier episode. I don't remember which one, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Berserkers.
I just wanted to see if anybody had anything today, but nope.
I do know something about berserkers based on an anime that I saw.
Oh, I only know anything about berserkers from How to Train Your Dragon, the book. What do you know based on your anime?
Well, they were actually Vikings that would eat a specific type of mushrooms that grew in Scandinavia, and then it would basically either give them strength or it would basically deaden their nerves so they couldn't feel anything, so that if they got cut or slashed or hit, they wouldn't feel it and they could just keep going and going
Yeah.
and going. And
Yeah.
people would be like, I can't kill this guy. Well, it's because they don't feel any pain. So they don't know. They're just going to keep killing people.
That's the more adult version of my understanding. So in How to Train Your Dragon, the first book, they explain how, I think it's Fish Legs is Hiccup's best friend. And he turns out, like, even though he's super scrawny, in the movies they made him huge, but in the book he's like the tiniest kid in the village and he's going to amount to nothing. Well, at some point they realize that he's a berserker, which according to the book means that he's just like, when he is triggered, he just goes stark raving mad, and nothing can stop him. He just becomes this like feral little like warrior man.
Exactly.
That will just like fuck somebody up.
That's what the mushrooms kind of do. Yeah. The mushrooms kind of like pick up their adrenaline and make them like almost like a bear. And so that people think that, oh, berserkers, they turn into bears when they do this, and they just rain down damage on anybody.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
some Vikings some Vikings who did this would actually wear bear skins as a like, hey, I'm a berserker, don't fuck with me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good way, like identifying them.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Fun stuff though. I wish I knew which mushrooms to go find and
try a few.
Scandinavia. Well, you can always try a mushroom once.
Once. But maybe only once.
Maybe only once. All right. Well, thanks for listening on. And this has been another episode of
The Wandering Crow. Real quick, tell us what next week's episode is, and I'll put the music after this.
Don't remember. Hold on. Oh, the next episode is Real Life Giant Encounters from Around the World.
Whoa.
Okay.
That's going to be good because there's supposed to be the giant of Kandahar, and then there's supposed to be the Paiute giant, and then there's supposed to be some other giants, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yes, I have a great giant story I've been waiting to tell. Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, exciting.